All right, pop quiz for those of you who want to speak up. So if I'm in the money, am I above or below a 50 delta on a call? Anybody?
Equal to or greater than?
Equal to or greater than, exactly. And it can go all the way up to 1 or 100, depending on how you notionalize it, right? So charm is a measurement of the rate of change of that delta. But once price has moved far enough away from the delta, from the strike, delta's 1 and charm is 0. There's no more change in delta due to time because it can't change, right? So why delta is important to look at is you may see some mountains on the horizon in a given structure, and those mountains that you see on the horizon may or may not be limited, right? Depending on, if they have charm. So like for an example, if we pull up the SPX, and we know we have a lot going on in the delta chart this week for SPX, you get this, right? So this is telling us that we have a lot of stuff here this week, and you can get onto the strike. Looks like it could be, I don't know, where is it? It's hard to get up on this thing. Here we go. Looks like, yeah, I can't seem to get on this thing easily. I usually run it a little tighter. This is just a default run, so it looks like 4150 is that charm strike or that delta strike, right? And as we get further away from the line right here in the deltas, then these other icebergs or these other mountains that you see here are going to be deeper and deeper and deeper in the money. Well, why is that relevant? So when you look at the charm and you look at the charm of the SPX, you get something that looks like this. Maybe. There we go. So note, we don't have any of this, right? So here's the delta, right? We got this. And we go to the charm, and we don't see as much, right? We still see this 4150 has got a lot of, it's big, it's a mountain, it's an iceberg, it's whatever it is. And why this is important to us is that the 4150s have they're a supportive flow. So the 4150s have not limited. That's the first conclusion, right? So we have underneath us, looking at the deltas, we know we've got this. We know that the 4150s are still growing through the week. Why is that important to us? Well, our book, and this is our book, so our book is getting longer. That's what the charm flow is telling you on this side of the table. Charm is getting longer here, and as charm gets longer, as the dealer gets, as we get longer in deltas, the dealer is getting shorter, so the dealer is going to be buy. So we have constructive behavior 4150 and above. That's first takeaway, right? That's how you interpret this, or at least that's how I interpret this. So you got that kind of thing going on there. You also see out of the money, we got calls down here. And basically, out of the money calls decay. Now they have a positive delta, right? You can barely even see them there. They're barely sitting right there. They're just barely above the horizon, right? They're there, but their deltas are smaller, right? Because they're out of the money. There's not as much OI up there right now, is what that's also telling us. All the OI is where we've been. And, for all intents and purposes, and you can see that this is bigger than this one. So the the charm for that is negative. So what you see in the delta is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, but it's still positive. It's still positive deltas, but it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller as it decays because it's out of the money. That's what an out of the money option does. It decays, right? That's what time does to us, right? So charm is a measure of that, and this is important. Same thing over here on the put side. Now, what do we know about the put side? You probably have heard people talk about, decaying puts are supportive. Jem talks about this. Others talk about this all the time. Well, here's why. Because a out of the money put has a negative delta, right? So it's, again, you can barely see these things. They're there, right? So this, by the way, this is a deep in the money put. I don't know what that is. But you can look at these things and you can say, okay, they're out of the money, don't look very big, and there's not actually a lot there showing there. And all things considered, the charm flows from that they're going from less than 0.5, so 0.4, 0.3, or negative 0.5, negative 0.4, negative 0.3, negative 0.2, which is a positive movement, where our book is getting less negative. Again, this is our book. Our book is getting less negative. The dealer's book is getting more positive. And as a function of that, the dealer has to compensate with that, right? So what do we have here? So when we look at this, we have positive flows here. We have our positive flows here. And the strike here looks to be about the same, 4150 or so. Can't get up on the very top of it for whatever reason. Just because the way the default charts are there, the granularity isn't as great. So the key takeaway is we're safe down to 4150, I think, for this week, as long as we hold that. Now, we already saw the other charts, 4200, 4250, 4270 was where the transition was. So I think we're well positioned there to deal with what we need to deal with. So that's kind of that. And then we can let me go back to charting 4. So we can look at so here's net delta, which combines that call and that put side to come up with this. And you can see, for all intents and purposes, we got lots of deltas that are sitting there. And we know, because of what we just looked at, they're pretty clear that they're going to be constructive. And then let's go look for the charm stuff. The net charm for this is right there. And when we look at the net charm, we see for Monday, we're sitting here. Oh no, that's a SPY. Sorry, I blew it. Let's look for SPX net charm. I'm getting there. Here we go. That's net delta. All right, let me go back here. Sorry about this, guys. Let me just grab this real quick. I thought I was telling a story and I didn't have the chart here. Here we go. So here's the net charm for SPX for Monday and beyond. And you can see pretty clearly that we've got this situation developing right up front here for just the SPXP, not the A's. I didn't include the AM stuff, so I'm looking just literally what are we looking at here on Monday, and you can see where the different strikes are. If I go up to the A's, go up to the P's. Let me rephrase that. Let me go up to the SPX here, and this will put it all together. So here's the net charm for the entire complex, and it's back what we think. So we've got some activity here on Monday. That's what this is telling us. And it's going to be down here. Let's see if I can get on this thing or not. Not as easy as I had hoped. There we go. 4350. Probably an upper limit. And then there's that 4270 that we were talking about before, which is also where transition is. Pretty good chance we're going to just play in that area for tomorrow. We'll know more in the morning with the update charts. So let's go look at the SPY now. Kind of the same story with the SPY. Now I don't normally do the SPY, so Taylor, if I say something stupid, make sure you correct me here. Kind of that same process though, right? I start with the delta, and I just want to see who's bigger, right? Who's winning the battle here. And you're going to see that the calls are winning the battle compared to everything else. So Here's call delta for the SPY, and you can see the put, not really a lot going on there, right? So clearly, when we run the net delta, we're going to see just a tremendous amount of call deltas that are just dominating all the air in the room. And now you wouldn't know these were calls. They could have been out of money puts, but because we looked at this chart and we know what we don't have here, this is what's dominating all the air over here. And you can see they look a lot alike, right? So you know that this is in the money calls, and it just so happens this expiry right here shows in the money calls, but that's only for the next expiry. SPY expires every day, therefore you get what you get. So we have that, and then let's go look at the charm chart. And the charm is going to tell us pretty much. I'm just going to jump to the net charm because now that you know how we're kind of adding all these things together. Again, we're looking at that 425 in the SPY. And where did we finalize yesterday? Let's see, SPY, or on Friday, 429.90. So 420 looks pretty much where we are. 425, maybe 426 area for charm, and then the upper strike again looks to be like it could be sitting right there at that 435. So those are probably the range bounds for the SPY, and then you can see what's happening by the end of the week. Right, we do have some out of the money stuff or stuff that's above us. We don't know what the source is, but if we look here, SPY, you can see we do have some in the money puts that are here as well as out of the money puts, and not a lot underneath us. Yeah, it could be some of this stuff right here. So, but I would just say from a charm perspective, the SPY is really telling us where we are. And you can see that since this is moving down a little bit over here, we might see some downward pressure just a little bit into the week. The Qs, you can go pretty quickly through that. Then same type of concept, looking at the deltas, and I'll just jump right to the net delta. I'm looking at the graphic of the split apart, and it's just a tremendous amount of in the money calls that are there. In fact, here, let's just so you can see just how dominant all these calls are for the Qs. So this is the delta, and you can see just it's night and day, right? There's so much money coming off that these people, now the Qs are not cash settlers, they're not like the SPX, and this is material because these people have got to make a decision. They got to roll these or do something with them, or they're going to be holding. I mean, they're going to be holding a great basis. There's no question, right? If you own down here at 300 and we're up here at 354, you're sitting pretty. The problem is you got to have a lot of capital in your account in order to take that over. So there could be a lot of monetization going on, and those deltas could potentially get rolled to the end of the month, which is this series of humps right here. Or they could get rolled out into July, which is all of this. And you can tell right now, even though, and Delta's time, but you can see that in magnitude, June is a big deal as far as the Qs are concerned. So I'd be looking at that. And then we look at, if that's all of the charm, what are we looking at for this week? Or all of the Delta, then what are we looking at in charm? And we're looking at this. So it's a much different picture, isn't it? It's a very clean picture. And charm is basically telling us that a lot of all of those deltas have already limited out. Dealers already adjusted them. We're not going to see any influence there. Where we're going to see influence from the dealers is right here. And so it starts pretty much down here, it looks like at 340. So all this stuff below 340, I can't seem to get on it. So all this stuff below 340, which is right here, is basically zeroed out in terms of dealer interaction. Dealers have already adjusted for it. Doesn't matter. The only thing that matters now is the closing of these deltas, which potentially could put downward pressure on the market as they close, because you're literally closing like you're closing stock, right? You're literally forcing the dealer's book to go from because they're short these, right? We're long calls. These are short calls on the dealer side. They have to close them. They're going from -1 to 0. They get longer. Therefore, to hedge back to where they were before you closed it, they got to sell. So that could put some downward pressure on stuff. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. So just this stuff is the stuff that's going to be in play. So that's SPX, SPY, in the Qs for the week.
Hey, Paul, that was going to